You hear the word werewolf, and you probably picture the same thing, right? Fangs, claws, a big full moon, a total nightmare. But what if the werewolf story isn't really about a monster at all? What if it's actually a story about, well, us? Today, we're going to see how this one single myth is kind of like a mirror and how it reflects three totally different and very human fears.
Okay, so let's set the scene. I want you to picture this. A tiny little village tucked right up against this massive, ancient forest. You know the type. Life there is comfortable. It's guided by the sun, by the old ways. Everything is predictable. Everything is safe. Or at least it was. Because that piece, well, it's about to be completely shattered.
All right, let's dive into our first story here. A village, a man, a monster. We're going to meet this guy named Silas, and through his story, we'll see how a town's fear can cook up a monster that's way scarier than anything from a legend. So check out how fast this all goes down. At first, it's just livestock being found mangled. Weird, for sure, but maybe you could explain it away. But then it gets personal. Women and children start disappearing, and their remains, they're found torn apart. Now, fear, real terror like that, it needs a face. And pretty soon, the whispers start. That suspicion quickly turns into an accusation, and that accusation needs a confession. And once they get that confession, doesn't matter if it's true or not, it all leads to this brutal public execution. It's a nice, neat little story, right? But is it the real story? And this right here, this is basically the perfect recipe for a scapegoat. See, the thing about Silas wasn't just that he was missing a hand. He was different. A new, really intense faith was sweeping through the village, but he stuck to the old ways. That made him an outsider. Then you add in all the rumors, that he was into forbidden arts, that he was having some secret, shameful affair. It all just piled up, everything that made him stand out from the crowd. He was, quite literally, the perfect target. And boom, this is where all that fear just boils over. Under who knows what kind of pressure, Silas gives them exactly what they're looking for. A monster. He confesses to it all, a pact with a demon, a magical belt that transforms him, all the greatest hits. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? It doesn't even matter if it's true anymore. He confessed. That made their monster real, and it gave them a villain they could finally publicly destroy. So this really gets to the heart of Silas's story, right? What was the real monster terrorizing this village? Was it a beast with flesh and fangs? Or was it that ugly, all-too-human monster of fear, prejudice, and the need for control? Yeah, hang on to that thought. Okay, so now let's look at our next case study, the Devil's Alchemist. With this one, all that gray area we just talked about, it's gone. We're not talking about some poor scapegoat anymore. Oh no, we're talking about a man named Peter Stump, a guy who chose to become a monster. And get this, just like Silas, Peter Stump was also missing a limb. But that's where the similarities end. See, Silas was a monster made by others. Peter Stump, he made himself. His transformation didn't come from whispers and rumors. It came from a very real, very deliberate, and frankly, a terrifying choice. Look at this. It's basically a business transaction, cold and simple. There's zero doubt here. Step 1, he's driven by revenge, so he calls up a demon. Step 2, he signs on the dotted line, trading his soul for some godlike power. And what does he get? Not some magical belt like in the stories. Nope, he gets a volatile alchemical serum. This wasn't an accident. This was evil by design. And just look at the upgrades he gets. This is way beyond just turning into a wolf. He basically becomes a supernatural weapon of mass destruction. We're talking super strength, insane speed, regeneration, massive claws. He even gets glowing eyes. And to top it all off, witch power and rune magic. This is the monster from your absolute worst nightmares, fully loaded. And he did this for 25 years. Think about that, a quarter of a century. By day, he's just a regular farmer, the guy you'd nod to in the fields. But by night, he's a savage monster. In this story, there's no question, no gray area. He is, without a doubt, the villain. Okay, but what if there's another way to look at this? A totally different angle. Our third take on this monster reframes the whole thing. It's not about good versus evil anymore. It's about a choice, a philosophical rebellion. Now, this quote, this just flips the entire script. Just think about it. What if Peter Stump wasn't condemned because he was evil? What if he was condemned because he was free? Because he was so powerful that he shattered all the rules that everyone else, the herd, calls morality. What if that was the real crime? To really get this, we have to talk about a concept from the philosopher Nietzsche, the Übermensch. It translates to overman or superman, but, and this is important, we're not talking about capes and flying. We're talking about a person who goes beyond what society tells them is good or evil and creates their own values, their own moral code, based purely on their own power and will. So really, you've got two completely opposite ways of looking at the world. On one side, you have herd morality. This is all about safety, playing by the rules, fitting in. It sees real strength and independence as dangerous. But on the other side, you've got the will to power. This view celebrates strength, instinct, desire. It's about embracing life in all its brutal, messy, authentic glory. No apologies.
So if you look at it through that lens, Stump's deal with the devil wasn't a fall from grace at all. It was a kind of transcendence. He wasn't becoming a monster. He was becoming more than human. He wasn't being damned. He was breaking free from all the petty little rules to embrace the beast inside him. He chose to be the wolf because, in his eyes, the wolf was the only one who was truly free.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've looked at 3 different takes on the same monster, and each one is really a reflection of a different kind of fear.
This table just lays it all out perfectly. You have Silas, whose power comes from other people's fear. Society's verdict? He's a scapegoat. Then you have the alchemical Stump. He wants power for revenge, and for society, he's the ultimate villain. But then there's the Nietzschean Stump. He finds power inside himself to be free, and society calls him an iconoclast, a dangerous person who shatters all the rules. See? It's the same monster, but it has 3 completely different meanings.
So, in the end, that's what the werewolf really is. It's a mirror. And what it reflects back at us is whatever we're most afraid of. Sometimes that's the outsider, the person who's just a little too different. Other times, it reflects our own capacity for evil. And maybe, just maybe, it reflects our deepest terror. The idea that all the rules we think are so solid can be broken. Which brings us all the way back to that first haunting story about Silas. It's a warning, really, about the shadows. And it leaves us with one final question that applies to every version of this myth we've talked about today. Where do the real monsters live? Are they out there, lurking in the forest? Or are they somewhere in here, in the hearts of men? Something to think about.